What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is part 2 of the KLX110 EFI build, and we're finally ready to pull the motors off the frames and see if things line up. Check it out. If you watched part 1 of this video, then you know that this bike is now running solid. There's no oil leaks, there's no problems. A little bit of a valve tick, not really too concerned about it. So I'm ready to finally pull this motor off the frame. The KLX is a bit hot, so I'm gonna start with this bike, pull this motor off first, set it on the ground, move to the KLX, and then I will come back and update you guys. Not really gonna film that stuff. It's just an engine sitting on the floor, and that's kind of a waste of your time and mine. All right, so about 2 hours later, I got both bikes torn down. I got both motors off for comparison, and I'm ready to wash the KLX. So this thing has seen better days, obviously, but not too terrible. Motor came right off, no issues. Got all my junk piled up here. And the Z125, same story. A little bit cleaner of a bike. Got all the good stuff over here, because if I don't take the forks and stuff, I do want to sell this bike as a roller. We'll see what happens. If I have to pull the fuel tank out of there, obviously it has less value, but we'll get there when we get there. So if you look down at these two motors, the Z125, KLX110, all the bolt spacing and stuff looks exactly the same, but until I hold it up, I'm not really gonna know. So before I can do anything else, I'm gonna pull the KLX outside and just pressure wash it down and get all the crap off it. I may pressure wash part of the Z125 motor too, or just wipe it down. I really hate pressure washing them, but I do wanna get some of this gunk and grime off from when it had a blown head gasket. And then we can set it on a jack and we'll raise it up and see how many bolts we can get through. Alright, so I jumped ahead a little bit. 2 updates at the same time. First update, new plastics are here. I don't have graphics for them yet, but they're sick. I had to drill out the front number plate and front fender actually to get it mounted. The number plate kind of went on. I had to zip tie something, but they're there for now. Just wanted to see how it looks. I really like this fender over the first generation KLX fender. Of course, we're still on the old gas tank right now. You can tell by this here, so it's not actually mounted. I just wanted to see what they looked like. But more importantly, I had a friend stop by, so I didn't need to use a jack, and we got the motor kind of in position. So the throttle body hit straight away. I pulled that off for now. I'm gonna mess with that in a minute, but you can see I've got this bolt in, there's a nut on the other side, it's just loose, but it does fit. Now this one, the bolt will not go all the way through. I don't know if you can see how much it's sticking out. It's not much, but it's not perfect, and it's because this rear wheel speed sensor, or I guess it's just wheel speed on the rear of the motor, this actually hits the part of the frame right here. Now there's a plug pointed that way, and I actually know this because the EFI tuner, when I was screwing around with that, it actually taps into this. So I'm familiar with what the sensor is and why it's there, but the clearance on the Z125 frame is a little bit different, so I'm gonna have to find a way. I'm just gonna grind this out a little bit on the outside and get it to run all the way in. Then I can get this bolt in and this bolt in, and as long as there's no interference there, we're good. There is like a reinforcement tube that's actually welded to the inside of this going this direction for the swing arm bolt to ride in, and I gotta make sure I don't end up hitting that with either the wiring harness or the sensor itself. I don't think it's gonna hit. I think it's really close, but I think we're gonna be okay. Once that's in position, then I can put the throttle body back on and see if I'm able to like turn it around or possibly remove some connectors. I'm not really sure how that's gonna go yet, but you know, I can take this off. It's just sitting there, and then we get a little more access. So the steps right now are fix this, then try to put the throttle body on. And then another thing I noticed is that the foot peg mount underneath, I don't know if you can actually see it, it's a little too dark, but there are no threaded holes where the foot peg mount would go. So the factory foot peg mount, although this one is a bit bent, you can see it's got 4 mounting holes and it goes straight up like this, and there are no threaded holes for that. So I can probably drill out the case and tap them, but it's a little sketchy-ish. I don't know if it doesn't have anything to go off of. So if it's like the KLX motor, which I'm assuming it is, I can just drill it out, tap it, and bolt the mounts on, or I could potentially do something like a JTI Corso plate that allows me to run them like on the rear bolt and then up here on the front, and I wouldn't have those center bolts. It might be a bit weaker, but I would also not risk drilling into the bottom of the motor. I don't really know yet. It's kind of frustrating because I'll have to drain the oil just to flip it over to drill it and tap it, but it is what it is. We'll cross that bridge here shortly. Let's get this out of the way. This off. So I started drawing a little Sharpie line here, and it's definitely not artwork, but it gives me a bit of an idea where to start grinding. I won't go as deep as this, like in that direction, but I will get started, and I'm gonna have to go a bit lower. I just can't draw it because this is in the way. We'll clearance that, and then I think I'll be able to fit these 2 bolts in. So dropping these engines one-handed isn't that bad. They're not that heavy, but it kind of sucks. So. I'll show you the inside of where the issue might be with the sensor plug. So this tube right here is potentially the problem. It'd be awesome if the sensor is like right here, but it's probably not going to work. I'm probably going to have to trim this down. I'll cut up here so we get rid of like an inch of pipe or somewhere along those lines. So I got my phone light to try to show this a little bit better, but it's still touching. I need to take down a little bit more. So I'll take the motor back off, grind it again, and test fit once more. So I was able to cut some out of this tube. It wasn't terrible, a little hard to get the angle grinder in there, but you can see how much I took off, and it may be more than I needed, but at least it's out of the way now. And again, it wasn't welded on the other side. It was just the existing part of the tube that kept on, you know, going downward. Going downward now that you can see it. We're gonna test fit the motor one more time, and then, you know, in the end, of course, this will all get primed and painted and whatever, so it's not a big deal right now. We will come back and readdress all those rough edges. That was it. That's all it took. So now we got all 3 bolts all the way in. There's no contact here, which is great. And if I look through with the flashlight on the backside, I can tell that I still have room to plug in my rear speed sensor harness. Now I might have to plug the harness in before the motor is installed, but it's not that big a deal. It's, you know, it's got to happen. What's cool is like you can, you know, they're all loose and I can move it, and I'm never getting any sort of contact. So if any adjustment is made, or when I tighten them all down, if it pulls the engine up, it's still not going to hit right here, which is the most important thing. And we're good. And I thought this would be an issue. I wish it wasn't, but here we are. So obviously it hits in all these locations, and down here the flange is not even close to mating up with the head. So the next option is, if you've ever worked on a KLX, you know the intake manifold and filter face forward, which kind of sucks because when you go to wash the bike, or just when you ride it in water, or even just in dirt, it gets a lot of extra stuff kind of going on around the filter because it's facing forward. So when you have a fender, but anything coming at the front of the bike, oh. All right, we're back. So flipped around like the KLX, the throttle cable should work. That's not touching, but the top of this is probably a TPS, so that does touch the frame. So I could probably grind the plastic on that sensor a little bit. I don't know if that's the best option. It's probably more expensive than buying a whole new frame, but I might just clearance the frame up here. I don't really know. I take that back. I really got kind of into it, and I grinded the top of the TPS down, and now we don't have contact. So this might actually work. The filter is gonna be kind of a problem because pretty much, I mean, I guess it'll come up like this. You know, I gotta get the fuel tank still. Until the newer tank comes in, I'm not completely sure where this is gonna go. But I think this could work, and we don't have to clearance this, which would be awesome because that would just save time. It would obviously, you know, keep it as strong as it is when it's factory. That would be cool. The next thing is a throttle cable. Because it's on this side now, I don't know. It has clearance, that's great, but I don't know if the length is going to be a problem because it's not really that long. So, but regardless, this is the end of part 2. Thank you guys so much. Please stay tuned for part 3. It'll be coming very shortly, as I'm working on this as fast as I can to get this thing done so I can ride it and so you guys can see it all happen. Thanks. Peace out.